is Russia pushing desperately across the front line, trying to push the Ukrainians back before the wave of U.S. aid arrives. But is it already working its way to the front lines? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. So this is the biggest updates, and you can see why this Russian breakthrough near Otra-Atina has not been contained. The Russian forces have continued to advance across Novobakhmutivka, moving here south of the town of Novobakhmutivka, and have now seized Solovyova. You can see that it seems like the Ukrainian strategy at this point is focused mostly on channeling or canalizing the enemy forces and having them advance in a northwest direction to prevent the total collapse of this Berdichi line. But I think, I suspect that Ukrainians are going to have to see the writing on the wall, because as you can see, the Russian forces have crossed more fully into Semenivka, meaning that this Berdichi line is probably not worth holding on to. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Ukrainians begin, if this itself is part of a controlled withdrawal by Ukrainian forces to prepared defensive positions, possibly along this Sokil-Voskhod-Yevhenivka line. That would be a better place for them to try to hold back Russian forces. But you can see that this is not the only place that Russian forces are making their advances. Near Karamek, you can see they are attempting a breakthrough here, trying to seize the town itself. You also have Russian advances near Ivanivsky. You can see these are pretty marginal relative to the gains in and around Berdichi, but it's still a sign that Russian forces are firmly in the offensive mode, so to speak. And you could see even in the south here, again, some marginal Russian gains. Again, it's pretty rare to see permanent changes in this northern front here, just because of kind of the nature of the terrain. But I think the takeaway to understand is that, one, Soviet doctrine, this is exactly how Soviet doctrine expects offensives to go, right? Where you achieve a breakthrough by pressuring across the enemy's front line. And then when you do achieve a breakthrough, you exploit it. And you see that there's a logic to it, right? Obviously, pressuring an entire front line in an attritional warfare style fashion is not very efficient, but it is very effective, because as you see here, all it took was one unit to make one mistake, and then boom, that opened up the floodgates. Literally, that's the other part of the doctrine, is when the enemy, in this case the Ukrainian forces, create or enable a gap in the front lines. Soviet doctrine says to pour your reserves into it. It's called exploitation, the idea of following up success with even more forces to further exploit the success. And I strongly suspect that at this point, Ukraine is likely conducting a fighting withdrawal. We've seen that Syrskyi is willing to yield territory to inflict casualties, and the logic is pretty clear. If you are Syrskyi, you're going to say, listen, the fight 3 weeks from now is going to look very different, right? We're going to have 10 times as many artillery rounds. We're going to have 10 times as many air defense rounds. We are going to be a different military. We're going to see many of the younger conscripts getting through training. They might be near completing their training and getting to the front lines. And all of that, he's likely saying, is going to give the Ukrainian military, that's the time to try to fight the Russians and not give them another inch. But now, what are they fighting over? Prokhovsky, Novoselivka, Persha, right? Like, these are small towns with likely less than 1,000 people in them. So withdrawing and yielding some farmland and 2 small villages to the Russians in exchange for buying themselves weeks of time for this critical supplies to get here seems like a really, really reasonable trade-off. It's obviously not a great look, but Ukrainians know. They know that with the right supplies, they can stop the Russians more or less indefinitely, as we saw in Avdiivka. So they just need to get back to that point. So that's what I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see a controlled withdrawal from this area, right? It's not going to be like a major stunning breakthrough, and you're going to see them reposition along this line here forcing the Russians to run that playbook again in even less favorable terrain, right? Because you can see that this Berdichi defensive line has some small rivers and stuff, but this one has a vast lakes that are uncrossable and much more stark terrain that Ukrainian forces can occupy, much more defensible high ground. Now, if you're looking for the ability to hold out against the grind of the day, thankfully you don't need to depend on $60 billion U.S. aid. You can just get some Strike Gum. Strike Gum, 0 sugar, 90 milligrams of caffeine in every single piece. That's as much as a Red Bull, right? So this pack is the equivalent of 5 Red Bulls worth of caffeine, but no sugar. So if you want to check it out, it's going to be on strikegum.com or on Amazon. And so check us out, Amazon.com. Just search for Strike Gum or Strike Gum Energy. And thanks to the dozens of people who've left us 5-star reviews, that really makes a difference. And thanks to everybody that's picked up their Strike Gum. It's clear that it's a hit, right? I see the number of reorders that we get. Something like a third of customers, I think, are reorder it, which is absolutely unbelievable for an energy product. Okay, so let's talk about exactly what this aid looks like. So now that Congress has authorized this big defense package, it's up to the White House to figure out what exactly these tranches look like. And we've already said the first tranche is $1 billion worth of air defense missiles and artillery rounds. But the next tranche is a $6 billion allocation of Patriot missile systems. Right? U.S. Defense Chief Lloyd Austin is saying that they're working with allies to get additional Patriot missile systems, but he can't commit to sending more U.S. versions of the Patriot to Ukraine. And this has been pretty typical. As we've talked about, a lot of the Ukrainian aid is actually older generation stuff. So the most up-to-date, the most current Patriot missile batteries not actually being what's sent to Ukraine. Similarly, you notice that the Abrams sent to Ukraine are M1A1s. Which is a somewhat older version of the Abrams. Let's see if I can actually get the version history. Here's the Abrams, for example. Right? There's 3 main ones, the M1, the M1A1, and the M1A2. So the M1A1 are what's been sent to Ukraine, and the U.S. itself is backfilling itself with the M1A2s. Again, and I think you're seeing something similar with the Patriots, where what Ukraine gets is a generation or so behind the most current U.S. stuff. Again, it's like it's like giving your used Toyota Corolla to your cousin, and you go, well, I need a car anyway, and the Porsche dealership is right down the street. That's what a lot of this has been, honestly. The U.S. gets to basically conduct a wide-ranging defense refresh, and Ukraine gets to use our old Toyota Corollas. No shade on the Corolla, by the way. They're workhorses, and that's actually a really good analogy. Again, Kiev is like, listen, these Patriots are unstoppable, guys, and the U.S. is like, it's not even our nicest Patriot. But the package, this $6 billion package, is also going to provide more munitions for this surface-to-air missile systems, and basically help the whole air defense network, missiles, launchers, and radars integrate into Ukraine's existing arsenal, including their Soviet-era weapon systems, getting them all to talk so that they have a system, an air defense network, not just a series of individual positions on the lookout, right? And of course, it's always more complicated than that. And I always point out that the Patriots are unique missile systems in that they are purely defensive. There is no offensive version of a Patriot. It literally doesn't do anything unless attacked. So it's something where ethically, even about fears of escalation, basically Patriots, you can't escalate a conflict with Patriot missile batteries. You just can't do it, right? It is among critics who fear that U.S. aid is escalating the conflict, which is absolutely not true because, again, as we pointed out, Russia is currently pushing Ukraine back, so aid is likely not going to escalate the conflict. The Patriot missile battery definitely won't do that. Now, what's kind of annoying is that one of the Russian talking points that we're starting to see in the media is that, quote, freezing the lines. And as the Russian-backed, I'm going to say voices, say, they go, well, this U.S. military assistance won't be enough for Ukraine to retake all its territory. To that, I say, no shit. No one has claimed that that is the case. This aid package is not about that. The aid package is about giving Ukraine the tools it needs to stop the Russian advance, to stop the Russians from seizing their territory. That has always been the case. The Pentagon has been very public with that assessment that this package is buying Ukraine 18 to 24 months of fighting and possibly some localized offensives. But honestly, the only country that seems to have an effective offensive tactical toolkit is Russia. And the only reason it has that tactical toolkit is because one of those tools is killing lots of their own people. That's not like a great winning strategy for Ukraine, but that is kind of the crux of the Ukrainian issue, is that basically they are in a war of attrition, and so they need to be highly efficient with how they use their stuff. And they will be. That's the thing. This $60 billion is going to go a long way in the fight, but it may not allow. It probably won't allow Ukraine to retake all its territory. I think that's pretty fair. But again, as we pointed out, this aid package is going to bridge the gap, because 18 to 24 months from now, when this aid bill begins to run out, the EU is going to have ramped up a lot of its arms production capabilities, and it's going to be able to arm Ukraine for this fight. So anyway, guys, that's really all I had for you. Thank you so much to the members of CombatVetNews.com. Thanks to our Colonel tier members. A new video just dropped today looking at the fighting in Ultra Latina. It's been pretty limited in terms of what videos are out there, but it really gives us some insight into what the fighting is like, particularly for the 47th and their counterattacks. So check us out, CombatVetNews.com. See you in the next one. Cheers.